Growing up, I was the youngest of 3 boys in my family. While my older brothers took after my dad, I found myself more aligned with my mom. Unfortunately, my father's abusive behavior toward her cast a shadow over our home. Though I never witnessed physical violence, his constant berating and shouting drained the joy from my mom's face. My brothers, taking cues from our father, made my life a torment. I still wonder why my mother stayed with my father. Since leaving for college, I've kept my interactions with my father and brothers to a minimum. I'm determined to live a life free from the toxicity of those who thrive on hurting others, whether emotionally or physically. While the other males in my family shun helping others, I find fulfillment in volunteering wherever I'm needed. It was through volunteering that I found the loves of my life. This experience solidified my desire to have children and break the cycle of abuse. I'm committed to ensuring my children grow up in a loving family. In a curious twist of fate, I found myself completing a strange circle of life. My name is Harry Simmons, and I have a secret identity as Santa Claus. However, I prefer to keep this under wraps. Call it a mental quirk, but I'm self-conscious about being perceived as a jolly old fat man. Despite my outward reserve, I do have a playful side. Playing Santa Claus at events led me to meet my wife. She was one of Santa's helpers, managing the children at an event where I was playing the role. All I knew was her first name, but her personality instantly caught my attention. After the event, I made efforts to find her, concealing my Santa persona. Eventually, we were introduced, and although Victoria was initially hesitant to go on a date, a double date opportunity gave me a chance. I turned on the charm and pretended to be a bit more affluent than I actually was at the time, and our romance began to blossom. After a few more dates, we became exclusive, and a year later, we tied the knot. While we haven't started a family yet, as we approach our 30s, the topic has started to arise more frequently. Known for being the serious, by-the-book kind of guy, I wasn't exactly at the top of anyone's party guest list. Many a company event was spent with the crickets as my companions, while Victoria flitted about enjoying herself. Meanwhile, I found solace in observing people. 4 years into our marriage, Victoria started hinting that I didn't need to accompany her to her company parties. I brushed off her suggestions and continued attending. It was around this time that I began to pay closer attention to whom she interacted with. I observed their behavior both together and apart. As the holiday season approached, I reached out to the Santa supplier, who provided a list of available gigs. One particularly intriguing one was at the Five Seasons Hotel on a Saturday. I always favored the upscale hotels. They tipped generously. I eagerly accepted the assignment. The coordinator emailed me the details in my duties, which aside from the usual tasks of entertaining kids and distributing presents, included mingling with the guests, a task I found futile, but I agreed to do it. There was another gig at a senior living center 3 hours before the hotel one, so I took that as well. It was only after confirming these gigs that I realized the company hiring Santa for the hotel event was none other than Victoria's employer, Malton Enterprises. Oddly, she hadn't mentioned anything about a party, and it was only 2 weeks away. Not that it made a difference, I was already committed to being their Santa. Still, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling it gave me. Our usual Saturday night routine involved dinner out followed by a movie or play. I waited until the Thursday night before her party to bring it up. Victoria, how about dinner and a movie tomorrow night? I have a project keeping me busy on Saturday afternoon and evening. Oh, you'll miss my company's holiday party. I hadn't heard about it. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, probably several times. I distinctly remember bringing it up last weekend. Sometimes I wonder if you really listen to me. Anyway, it's not a big deal if you miss it. Let's face it, parties aren't really your thing. Did Victoria say this with a look of disappointment? Not really. It was more like she was struggling to contain her glee. She attempted to appear sad, but I made a mental note to keep a close eye on her. Introducing Santa to the attendees wasn't a regular practice. This event was no exception. I had crossed paths with nearly all of the management team at previous gatherings. Despite my reserved nature, I had a knack for remembering faces and names. Only a handful of attendees gave me a second glance, sensing something familiar about me in the back of their minds. Eyes have a way of leaving a subconscious impression. Fortunately, no one blew my cover. The owner, Michael Malden, was busy greeting all his employees and their families, amidst the chaos of children on laps. Some terrified, some in tears, and others excitedly unwrapping expensive gifts. I spotted Michael with Victoria. Though I couldn't hear their conversation, Victoria's body language suggested she had made every effort to persuade me to attend. Michael, on the other hand, seemed less than pleased, his body language far from welcoming. As Michael turned away from Victoria, I noticed her exchanging glances with one of the salesmen, Pat Stillman. Pat was probably a decade older than us, with a wife and kids, if memory served me right from the summer BBU. Maybe Mrs. Stillman was playing Santa elsewhere tonight, or perhaps Pat was divorced, or he had found a way to have the evening to himself. But Victoria raising her eyebrows and smiling at him bothered me. Every 40 minutes, I was granted a 10-minute break. After a quick visit to the restroom, I retreated into the shadows. The hotel had set up a dark mesh screen for Santa to hide behind, although you could still see through it somewhat. On the dance floor, Victoria and Pat were swaying to a slow song. Her head rested gently on his shoulder, and my stomach clenched when I saw Victoria guiding Pat's hand to her side. It was a move I knew well, one I had enjoyed on more than a few occasions. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone and snapped several pictures from behind the screen. I selected the most incriminating photo and sent it to Victoria, along with a message about failing the spouse test. "Take a look at this photo someone sent me. If the next one doesn't show you giving this guy a good smack, I'll be disappointed. Isn't that Pat Stillman?" Victoria must not have felt the buzz of my message, or perhaps her phone was left at her seat. On a whim, I dialed the hotel and asked to be connected to Victoria Simmons. No one by that name was registered. "How about Pat Stillman?" They transferred me. No answer, but the smarmy jerk had a room. So I decided to send the photo to Michael Malden. "Do you encourage your married employees to cheat at these parties?" A party I wasn't even invited to, mind you. "Isn't it strange that Pat has a room booked at this hotel?" Harry Simmons. Back at the head table, I saw Michael glance at his phone. He then began to observe the same couple I was watching. Turning to the official photographer, he gestured with his fingers. Michael and the photographer exchanged a few words. The photographer nodded and resumed mingling, also taking photos of Victoria and Pat. After the second slow dance, Victoria and Pat parted ways with a quick peck on the lips, then headed in different directions, only to end up sitting next to each other. I had noticed name cards on each table, so it was clearly assigned seating. How convenient. It was time for me to take my place in the Santa throne. I've always wondered why the mothers of these kids flirt with Santa. What's that about? Do they think I have a connection with the big guy? Don't get me wrong. I don't mind when a woman goes out of her way to make sure I notice her cleavage. I always smile and wink back at them. As the anxious children poured out their hearts, I noticed Victoria sneaking glances at her phone. It was quite comical. She recoiled from Pat and scanned the room, trying to find who might have taken that photo. Pat attempted to console her with his arm, but she brushed it away, speaking sternly to him. He followed Victoria's scanning of the room. Amidst the kids, I managed to snap a quick photo of the pair, one looking left, the other right. During my next break, I planned to send it to Victoria. Thankfully, my phone was on silent. Victoria hurried to the hallway, alone clutching her phone. As my phone vibrated, I saw her pacing back and forth, occasionally lifting the phone from her ear and peering at it, as if that would make me answer her call. I let it go to voicemail. When the food lines opened, signaling my 30-minute dinner break, I took the chance to send Victoria the busted photo. "That looks more like a we've been caught picture. Don't bother coming home. She replied moments later, looking visibly distraught when she glanced at her phone. With rapid thumbs, she sent another message. It's not what you think. This is a complete misunderstanding. At least I had disrupted her plans for the night. However, I doubted I had been lucky enough to catch her affair before it began. If Pat was separated or divorced, I wondered if Victoria was the reason why. It was time to engage with the guests. I felt more like a clown than Santa. Turns out, people don't quite know how to have an adult conversation with Santa. Pat nervously scanned the crowd, searching for the informant, while Victoria kept her distance from everyone and eventually headed towards the restrooms. Pat seemed like a trapped squirrel, unsure where to turn as Malden approached him. After a brief exchange, Pat's shoulders slumped, and he made his way to the exit. It was around that time Victoria re-entered the party area. She appeared cheerful until Malden caught her attention. Her smile vanished in an instant, replaced by a look of sheer terror and panic. Wiping away a tear, Victoria gathered her belongings and left the party. And thus, the strange circle was complete. While playing Santa, I had developed feelings for Victoria. But now, I felt nothing but disgust towards her. After spending some time with the children after dinner, I decided to take a break. Victoria had left several voicemails and text messages. I replied, "My source tells me you and Pat were sent home. Did you visit his hotel room again? Maybe you had some fun before and after the party. Harry, it's not what you think. I didn't do any of that. I wasn't feeling well, so I left. I went straight home, and I'm here alone now. When will you be home? It seems I told you not to come home. I guess I'll get a room for the night. You disappoint me. Harry, don't say that. Come home. Let me explain so you understand." "There's nothing to understand. You wore an outfit I've never seen before and were letting him touch your breast. I bet you two had plans. No wonder you didn't want me there. Where were his wife and kids? They're getting a divorce. So you're a homewrecker too. What a disgrace." Victoria called, but I couldn't answer. My break was over. One last session with Santa. Then I packed up. Usually, I spend my tips on nice gifts for Victoria. If she gets anything from me this year, it won't even be as good as a lump of coal. Now back in my regular attire, I found Michael Malden. "Hi Michael, I'm Harry Simmons," I said, extending my hand. "Harry, I sent Victoria home. We don't condone that behavior here. She and Pat are meeting with HR first thing Monday. By the way, how did you get that photo?" "You're right, it doesn't matter. I'm glad you're addressing it. If we never meet again, just know I appreciate you taking a stand. Hope the holidays treat you well." Michael clapped me on the back as I turned to leave. It must be taxing being a father figure to this bunch of troublemakers. Turning my phone off, I found a budget motel by the interstate. Emotionally more than physically, I was exhausted. After a long hot shower, the reality of my situation finally hit me. I won't say I cried myself to sleep, but I won't deny it either. Even without the aid of an alarm clock, I woke up at my usual time. How does the body manage that? Whether I liked it or not, I had to head home eventually. If it were up to me, it would be later. When I switched my phone back on, there were the expected missed calls and texts from Victoria. Instead of calling her back, I rang my Santa hotline to check if they needed a last-minute replacement. Turns out, the Santa scheduled for Children's Hospital had been arrested for DUI on Saturday night. I quickly agreed to step in. It was my first time doing a hospital gig, and I doubt I'll ever turn one down again. Despite their illnesses, the kids were so genuine. Their hugs were filled with hope. If a parent was around, whether a mom or a dad, they usually gave me a tight, heartfelt hug. Some of the nurses were exceptionally friendly. I guess I needed that. The woman I loved had torn my heart apart, and I needed some form of reassurance. Eva, a nurse around my age, was my guide during the lunch break. We walked briskly side by side. "We can use the nurses' lounge, but only if you promise to behave. I'll have no trouble telling the naughty from the nice." "Oh really? Which category do I fall into? Definitely the nice one. Eva's smile was disarming. Good answer. What would you like to drink? Did you bring anything to eat? I'm filling in for a sick Santa, so I came unprepared. Water will do. The hospital covers your meal. Just tell me what you want, and it will be here in 10 minutes or less. After Eva placed my lunch order, she pulled a chair close. I had taken off my white gloves and red cap. I can tell by your hands that you're probably about 30 years old. You have a ring halo. Still have a Mrs. Claus. Probably not for much longer, I said, suddenly feeling closed off. Sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. Don't be sorry. It's my problem, not yours. No rings or halos for you. Hard to believe someone as cute as you is unchained. Aren't you a sweet talker? I took school seriously and didn't want a relationship interfering with my career. I've only been out of nursing school for 18 months. Things are settling down now, so I'll probably turn my dating radar up a notch or two. With your smile, you won't be on the market long, I said, drawing another of her magnificent smiles. My food arrived, along with an apple for Eva. We continued to chat until my break was over. Eva was never far away as she guided me from room to room. When it was time to pack up, Eva waited for me to change and then escorted me to my car. I hope our paths cross again, Santa, unless you want to tell me your real name, I said. Harry. Harry Simmons. I enjoyed being around you today, Eva. Your smile is something I really needed. You were wonderful today, Harry. Children and animals seem to know a good person, and these kids really took to you. Take care, sweetie, she said as she turned and returned to the hospital. After planting myself in the driver's seat, I sat there for the longest time. When I started my car, I knew what the future held for me. Being around these kids reinforced the direction I wanted my life to follow. When I arrived home, I noticed 2 extra cars parked in front of my house. It dawned on me that I hadn't turned on my phone since heading to the hospital. As I waited for the garage door to open, I saw Victoria pulling back the curtain in the front room. With her mother by her side, they gave me a cold stare. My welcome wasn't exactly warm. Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence, my mother-in-law said, dripping with sarcasm. I chose to ignore her. I was worried about you, Victoria said softly. Little boy has to run off and hide, my brother-in-law chimed in. Only my father-in-law attempted civility. Care to explain why you disappeared, Harry? Looking directly at Victoria, I retorted, I take it Victoria gave you the Hallmark version. Did you forget to tell your family that you've started dating again? My monstrous mother-in-law exclaimed. Hell, I don't believe it. Regardless, I'm glad you're all here. This way the story can't be spun. I'm divorcing Victoria, I announced. Victoria shrieked. Harry, no. Holding up my hand, I silenced her. Let me finish. I've always wanted children, but I've decided that it's too risky to have children with Victoria. I grew up around abuse and disrespect, and Victoria showed her true colors last night. I don't want to end up as a weekend father. Victoria reached out as if to hug me, but I held up a hand. Using the kitchen table as my shield, I continued. As recently as a month ago, on our 5th anniversary, as a matter of fact, we were discussing children. And now I find out she has a boyfriend. Did you tell them that the company owner sent you home from the party for behaving inappropriately? Well, did you, Victoria? The room fell into a deathly silence. I didn't think so. Wonder if you'll have a job come Monday. Pat Stillman, apparently in the midst of a divorce, is her current boyfriend. Then again, maybe he just told Victoria he was getting a divorce. He is not my boyfriend. We've never had sleep. What then? Did you charge him to fondle your boob? Victoria hurriedly left the room, and suddenly everyone else found something or someone else to focus on. I won't be long. I just need a few days' change of clothes. Then you can get back to Harry bashing. Son, maybe counseling would work. Sir, in case you weren't listening, I want kids, but I won't risk their future with the likes of Victoria. Counseling ain't going to change that. As I headed towards my bedroom, I heard lots of hushed arguing. The bathroom door was closed. My guess is that's where Victoria hustled off to. 10 minutes later, I was backing out of my garage. On Wednesday, Victoria received divorce papers at Meldon Enterprises. I heard about it from several angry soon-to-be ex-relatives. Apparently, that was somehow inappropriate, though I failed to see why. When Victoria called that evening, I decided to maintain civility. "Hello," I said in my most monotone voice. "Harry, it's me." "I know. What do you want?" He never gave me a chance to clarify what you think you saw in that picture. "Go right ahead." It was taken totally out of context. We must have been doing a spin move or something, and that picture leads to a very inaccurate conclusion. "Really? My bad then. Just so you know, I didn't share the video that was also sent. Let me play that again to see if your story holds water." The only video was the one constantly looping through my mind. I wasn't thinking that night. A video is just as easy to take as a picture. "Harry, please, it was just some stupid fun on the dance floor. That's all. And lying about it makes it better. That's like shooting a horse with a bad leg. You don't do that to speed up the healing process. You killed our future. I won't go through the process of trying to raise kids only to have you run off with a lover demanding alimony and child support. We are history. Give me a chance. You won't regret it," he pleaded. "You couldn't stay faithful for 5 years. Now you expect me to believe you can go 20 because you've seen the light. Sorry, time for me to go. Call me shallow. Call me a quitter. But the best description is gone. I'll fight the divorce, Harry. Good for you. I hope you pull your head out of your butt before you get married again," were my parting words. If Victoria followed through with her threat to fight the divorce, it would only cost everyone money. Though it didn't bring much solace, the news of Victoria being reassigned to a lesser position brought a smirk to my face. My projected alimony went up a little. Curiosity got the best of me, so I called Meldon Enterprises and asked for Pat Stillman. Unfortunately, they informed me he was out of the office for a few days. Oh well. With only a few weeks left until Christmas, all the Santa visits to hospitals were already scheduled. I put my name down on all of them as a backup if needed. Someone at the North Pole was looking out for me. On the Sunday afternoon before Christmas, I played Santa at a different hospital. My contact and guide turned out to be a man with an attitude. Still, I thoroughly enjoyed the kids and their families. After the day was over, I was more determined than ever to have my own family. Even though I was barely into the divorce process, I opened several dating site accounts. There are a lot of people using those websites for things other than dating. The emails ranged from political to religious, with all sorts of products offered in between. Wading through them all, I found a few interested in doing an online chat. Now I had cold feet. My conservative, self-conscious inner being was rearing its panicked head. The dating websites faded quickly into the someday holding area. Victoria didn't contest the divorce, yet it still dragged on until spring. I developed a few female friendships, but was hesitant to dive into the dating scene. The few attempts I made ended disastrously. Recovering from a broken marriage takes time. Oddly enough, I found solace in knowing others like me were out there, searching for love. Answering emails and exchanging small talk helped pass the lonely nights. No one at work knew about my divorce until I showed up at the summer company event without a spouse. Then the gossip started. Why is it always assumed that the husbands are the cheaters? According to a study I read about cheating demographics, it's almost an even split until age 50. Then men seem to stray more, often citing ego boosts. Anyway, I did manage to go on a few dates. Late August, a maintenance worker's ladder fell on me while I was just standing in line at the cafeteria. Why he chose the busiest time of day to be on that ladder isn't my concern. What mattered was the ugly, bloody gash near my ankle. A coworker drove me to the emergency room at Good Sam. As I sat in my curtained-off area, I thought I recognized a voice. When the curtain was pulled back, my heart skipped a beat. Well, 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 I said as I recognized her. Look who it is. Santa's got himself a gash. The reindeer's acting up, Harry. Kids found out about your past. Is that why you're here, Eva? Yep, you caught me. They told me to leave and take that higher-paying job with better benefits. Got a story behind this cut. Looks like you're gonna need some stitches. The maintenance guy knocked his ladder over. Right onto me. I know, as your ring halos are gone. Divorced. Yep, as of April. Still no jewelry on your fingers. Take them off for work. Maybe I should ask you out for dinner, and you can tell me all about it. Maybe you should. When was your last DPT shot? Let's see. How about I haven't a clue? I'll let the doctor know. Where are you taking me? To infinity and beyond. Just then, a doctor entered my area. What's going on, Mr. Simmons? Got hit by a ladder. Bled a little. Nurse Eva's been keeping me distracted so I don't feel the pain. Good job, nurse. No problem. He doesn't remember his last DPT shot. Should we give him a very painful one so he remembers next time? I take it you two know each other. We met last Christmas. He was playing Santa at the time. Well, that explains why the quiet and shy nurse Eva isn't here this time. The hospital probably wouldn't like us making the DPT shot painful, so let's stick to SOP. Go ahead and clean the wound and give him a shot. I'll be back in a few with my sewing kit. After the doctor left, Eva gently administered the shot. As she cleaned my wound, she pressed me again. Where are you taking me? And when? Someplace where I can show you off, without worrying about you running off with my competition. Maybe a laundromat. How about no? I said, feeling a sharp pain in my cut. Then how about this? I'll meet you at Maria's pub at 7 tomorrow night. They have great pickles. Making me drive myself. Well, I don't have your phone number or an address. Touché. It's a date, I said with that disarming smile of hers. The doctor returned, and 10 minutes later, I had a few stitches. As Eva left, she said with a devious grin, "Don't be late, or your competition nightmare might come true." I arrived at Maria's pub promptly at 6 p.m., feeling a sense of excitement I hadn't experienced since my breakup. My heart fluttered as I watched some guy hold the door open for Eva. Despite his invitation to join him, she politely declined and scanned the room. She looked stunning while I, admittedly, hadn't put much effort into my attire. I stood and waved at her, and her smile instantly warmed my nervous heart. Popular place, I remarked. Well, I did say I wanted to show you off. Seems like it didn't take long for someone to try their luck, but I suppose you're used to that. What can I get you to drink? White wine. Looks like you've been here a while, judging by the peanut shells. Yeah, I couldn't afford to be late. At least, that's what I was told. Wow, a guy who listens. The noise level was just right, allowing us to have a pleasant conversation over dinner and drinks. When we grew tired of sitting at the table, I suggested, would you like to go to a movie or dancing? Not really. I'm more interested in learning about you and your past. There's a quiet little coffee shop near my apartment. I'll text you the address. What's your phone number? After exchanging pecks on the cheek outside the restaurant, I pulled up the coffee shop's location on maps. Thankfully, I had no trouble finding it. Eva arrived just before me, indicating she knew all the best parking spots. The next 2 hours were enjoyable. She was 3 years younger, wanted children and a career, but was willing to pause her career for the first few years of her kids' lives. She was as reserved as I was, but once she opened up, she revealed a very kinky sense of humor. Thankfully, Eva didn't pry into the details of my failed marriage, at least not immediately. It wasn't until about a month later, after a series of dates, that she broached the subject. Harry, it's clear you like me, and I feel the same about you. But before things go any further, I need to know what led to the end of your first marriage. Eva, I do like you, And I want you to understand that what I'm about to tell you is my perspective. You can verify with anyone I mention. Here's the story. You're probably one of the few who knows that I play Santa. Even my ex didn't. And still doesn't. Last December, I took a gate at the Five Seasons Hotel. It turned out to be a party for my ex's company, Malden Enterprises, a party I wasn't invited to. I waited, but no invitation came. Then, on the Thursday before the party, I told her I had plans for that Saturday. Only then did she mention her company party. I told her to go without me. That sounds suspicious and definitely raises some red flags. Exactly. While I was playing Santa, I kept an eye on her. She was overly friendly with a salesman who had a room booked at the hotel. During my first break, I observed them dancing closely. Then I saw something that confirmed my suspicions. She took his hand and placed it on her side boob, discreetly but intentionally. I snapped a picture. I wish I had taken a video. I wasted no time in confronting her and the company owner with the evidence. What a manipulative person. The next day, I met you while I was doing a gate at the children's hospital. Being around those kids reminded me of my desire to have children. I realized I couldn't trust the future of my kids with someone like her, so I filed for divorce. Just like that, Eva asked, clearly surprised. Yeah, it was a snap decision. No counseling. No attempt to work things out. Nope. Having kids means committing to at least 20 years. She couldn't even make it 5. But you didn't have concrete proof of her infidelity. I had no proof they had slept. I caught her cheating. Several times she pushed my hand onto her breast while we slow danced. It turned her on. Then she'd sleep like a log. I got the message. She missed her chance to have my kids. Convictions are beliefs we should defend. I took action. Eva's face showed mixed emotions. The conversation stalled. When we hugged and kissed that night, I wasn't sure about another date. But a few days later, I called, not giving up on us. Eva acted normal. It had been a dry spell until we committed to each other. After dinner and a stroll in the park, Eva took me to her apartment. In all our time together, I'd barely seen any skin. She always wore jeans or knee-high boots with skirts. Her tops hid any hint of cleavage. The holiday season was fast approaching once more. Any plans for Saturday? I asked Eva. Well, I'm working the 4 p.m. to midnight shift. What's on your mind? She replied. How about being Santa's adorable little helper? Maybe, she teased. I volunteered to play Santa at your old haunt. I need to be there by 8 a.m. The kids might not appreciate how great you'll look in your helper costume, but I definitely will, she said, laughing. You're such a pervert. Let's just hope those kids aren't telepathic or we're in trouble. So Eva joined me at the Children's Center. We made a great team, and I love seeing the joy on those kids' faces. As we left back in our regular clothes, Eva leaned in, saying, You know, if you asked, I'd commit to a 25-year agreement, or longer. Aren't you worried I might just toss you aside on a whim? I teased. Nope. I talked to Michael Moulton, and he pretty much confirmed your story. I admire the courage you showed in standing up for what you believe in. And you believe in loyalty, don't you? Just as much as you do, she replied. Seizing the moment, I took both of Eva's hands in mine and dropped to one knee. Eva, would you marry me? I asked, miming opening a ring box. I'd be honored, sir, she replied, pretending to take a ring out of the imaginary box and sliding it onto her finger. It seems I guessed right on the ring size, I said. You did. 5.5 fits perfectly, she said with a mischievous grin. A few days later, I repeated my proposal, this time with a real ring. Epilogue. It felt as if we were characters in a holiday competition tale. Everything that needed to fall into place did. We lived happily ever after with 2 children. First came a lovely girl whom we named Eva Jr. She was followed by another girl whom we gave a traditional name. Just kidding. We gave them both traditional names. Who was that on the phone? Where do you think you're off to? Dad's voice echoed down the hallway. It was Santa. He needs me to guide his sleigh tonight. 3 mon, they won't even let you join in the games. They still tease you. No, really, it was Santa. Dear, what? Who's she? No, really, it was Santa. Well, you better dear call Santa and tell him you can't go. And if I ever find out who she is, we're having venison burgers. Now get your shiny little nose upstairs and finish wrapping presents. Wouldn't hurt to help clean up either. Santa wasn't pleased. He called Rudolph's brother Ralph, who had an orange nose. Thankfully, they couldn't make a jingle out of Ralph's orange nose, so we were spared from that irritating song. Rudolph ended up with coal in his stocking.